Alright, say whatever you want to say.
You asked me about how I felt about dying. And all I can say is that I never expected to live this long. I've been living on borrowed time for 16 years. I really came close to dying on December 12th, 2004. So how can I feel badly about dying when I've had all this extra time, good time too? My parents were very reserved when it came to children. They'd had some bad luck with some earlier children, and therefore they didn't want to get too close. And I came a little earlier than expected, which is why they called me Faith, because they were afraid something was going to go wrong when I came about 3 weeks early. It wasn't the happiest childhood, I wouldn't say. But I took piano lessons. I love piano, and I love my piano teacher. And all my life, music has been very important to me. That was a good thing. That was a positive thing. So in the 7th grade, one of my friends was having a birthday party. So there I was with nobody. Billy Towle was there with another girl. And he saw me sitting sort of on the side. And he had said to his friend, "Do you mind if I take a break and dance with Faith?" He came and invited me to dance. And do you know that years later, he remembered the dress I was wearing? Anyway, from that moment I thought, this guy is special. He's not just a popular guy in the 8th grade. He's thoughtful. He saw me sitting here alone, and he, was kind and invited me to dance. So that was the beginning of my infatuation with Billy Towle. And that was the way where my life really began to take off. We were married when I was 19, and he was 21, and I had just finished my sophomore year, and Bill was working on his graduate work by then. He was invited to take a Fulbright scholarship in Holland. He applied, and he was accepted. I remember the day he came home, he said, "We're in, we're going. We're going to Holland." And he picked me up, and we danced around. He said, "How exciting, we're going to go off to Europe." When you do things, it opens doors to other things. And we were never ever afraid to open those doors and take advantage of the opportunities.
Can you catch me up the hill? Catch me? Come catch me.
I really always enjoyed every moment of being a mother.
He is fascinated. Yeah.
So we went back to California. They spotted me for being a children's librarian. I said, "I'm not sure I want to work with kids, Well, I tried it, and I loved it. Storytelling and all that. It was meant for me, but I didn't know that until I did it. I worked it up until practically the day he was born. And so it was Andrew. That was the plan. We had a plan, you see, that we're going to have 2 kids, a boy and then a girl. And that was Steve. And when he popped out, I said, "Oh, it's a boy." Wait a minute, I was having to the plan. But as it turned out, that was the best thing. He was a good father from day one. He knew more about babies than I did. And so here I was with 3 boys, Bill, Andrew, and Stephen. And it worked out great because I like to do the same things I like to do, camping and hiking and, all these things, skiing together. So it was just fine having 2 boys.
Yeah.
The boys were something like 4 or 5 years old. They were just not little beyond toddlers. But so we did. We put our house on the market, and we shipped our stuff off to New Delhi, India. And we stayed there for 5 years. Steve, even in those days, was always into mischief, and he was always doing something naughty. So one of the Marine guards came to me, and he said, "Well, he's fell out of a tree. He's bleeding pretty badly, and we think he should go to the hospital." So Stephen was crying, of course, and they said to me, calm him down. So I held his hand, And I started telling them a story, one of the Indian folk tales. And then they were done, and so I stopped the story. I said, no, finish the story. They were all listening to this story. So I got the idea, wouldn't it be nice to write a book myself? And I had the idea of trying to do an Indian folk tale and illustrate it with Indian folk art, batik. Then next time we went to the States, I took the batiks and my story, which I'd written, and was looking for a publisher. And within a few hours, I had a deal. I couldn't believe it.
"Give me back my magic cooking pot," said the poor man. When the innkeeper had given his promise, the poor man turned the magic pot right side up. How'd you do that?
I'll see you later.
Hello.
Advise him if he needed any advice
Yeah.
about dealing with India. Up to the Jura, to Saint Georges, which is the highest village in Switzerland. Andrew went off to college, which is Steve there one year. I joined the community choir down there. For some reason, the choir at Notre Dame in Paris was on strike or something, and so they invited us to come and sing the Easter Mass. And that was so exciting to be in Notre Dame, to be up front there and see this whole mass of people. There must have been thousands of people there. Wow, one of the highlights of my life. At that point, our dads had both passed away, but our mothers were still here in Auburn and in Maine. So we came back and moved here to Raymond. He loved it, pruning trees and thinning. I liked making trails. I made lots and lots of trails. They had these huge big boulders, really tall big boulders, all covered with beautiful lichen. And later on, Bill and I looked at these and said, "This would be a perfect gravestone, these boulders, because they're so special." So now we had them both married. Anna didn't really want to have children, but Steve did. The baby was 10 months old, so one of his friends was going to get married, and for his last bachelor thing, he wanted to have a ski day.
Granddad doing, Daddy?
Granddad's putting Uncle Steve's ashes in the ground. Let's see. Remember Uncle Steve?
Yeah.
Uncle Steve died, and that's his ashes there.
And he hit this wet ice, and ski just slid, and he couldn't stop it. And the guy who examined him said that he was dead, that he'd gotten smashed against the cliff. So it's gone. And so poor Anna was 32 years old with a 10-month-old baby. She and I became very close because I had been the mother-in-law, but now I was no longer the mother-in-law. We were just two women grieving for the same guy. In 2004, I was having some trouble with my heart. They didn't think I would need a replacement, but a repair. In the operating room, they typically give a drug called heparin. I'm allergic to it, but they didn't know that. And that killed my heart. I had a heart attack on the operating table. Bill was out in the waiting room, and the doctor came out and said, "I'm sorry to tell you this, but I think we're going to lose her." He couldn't believe it. He just lost Steve the previous year, and the doctor's coming out and telling him that he's going to lose me. The doctor said, "There's nothing more we can do except to send you to Boston for a transplant." He came to see me almost every day. One night, the doctor put his head in the door and said, "Your heart is coming tonight." I was so excited. I was so scared. It was very exciting for us. He came over, and we sat there holding hands and talking about our lives. It was a pretty serious operation. I might not make it, so we just talked and talked and talked and talked. That was a life-changing experience. And we came back from there, and we realized you never know when things are going to happen. You never know what the future's going to be. One thing that kept my spirits up, because it was a long time being in the hospital, 6 months. And I used to take myself on virtual walks in my forest, and I still do that now that I can't walk in the woods anymore.
Granddad is over there.
2016, and Bill was having troubles and not feeling well, and he said, "This is a very bad cancer, and there's nothing, there's no way it can be saved." It was sad to see this strong man who had been so active, so brave, who loved the forest so much, and he would go for little walks, and he's like I am now. He could hardly walk. It was just so sad to see this man go so down so far. But he was so brave about it, so brave. He came to the point where he said, "This is it, I've had enough." So I called Andrew he came up from Connecticut, and he slipped away. That was it.
Oh dear.
And I don't think the smaller birds like to live with it.
And so we had his ashes up there put by the big boulder in Boulder Garden. And that's where I will be someday, in the same place. I was still pretty okay in those days. And I would go all alone, walking in the woods. But I've always said, as long as I have a brain in my eyes, life is worth living. That's slowly things began to get worse. Sometimes I feel like I could go tomorrow because I'm in so much pain. I'm in a lot of pain. I just have to accept it. As they say, if you live long enough, you'll get old. And I've gotten old. I'm 82, so I never ever dreamed I would make it to 82. But here I am, 82, and who knows, maybe I'll make it to 83. As you can see, I've had a full life, I've had an interesting life, I've had a good life. What more could you want? It's a fact of life. It comes to an end, and I know it's going to come. And it's okay, because I know where I'm going. I'm going to Boulder Garden.
Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the flowers gone? Long